So we'll continue on with Pacharambache's short and sweet and potent instructions. Okay, so the fourth one. Your future rebirths stretch out ahead much further than this life. The circumstances of those lifetimes will depend on your current aspirations, positive or negative. Don't jeopardize your future lives by seeking fame and status in this life. Okay. So somebody could read this and say, wait, he's talking about future lives that stretch far out into the future. And you guys talk about past lives and all these things happening in the past. And I thought Buddhism says you're supposed to stay in the present moment. So why is there so much stuff about the past and future? We need to stay in the present moment and just delight in whatever chocolate cake we have at the present moment, or delight in whatever it is, Yeah, let's stay in that present moment. And you're talking about future aspirations here. So it's quite interesting if we think about it, okay? Because we do have to think about past and future, in our spiritual past practice. We think about past so that we can confess and repent the negativities that we've created and purify them. If we don't think about the past, then we're not going to do the purification. We're going to have tons of obstacles to practice. We think about the future because we want to have a good rebirth as the beginning, as the first step towards attaining full awakening. So we have to think about how do we create the causes for having a good rebirth, because that's the most imminent, important thing. And beyond that, how do we create the causes for full awakening? Because if we keep our mind focused on full awakening, a good rebirth will come automatically. But all of this involves creating the causes. So we have to think of the future and what causes need to be created. So we do think about the past and future, and it's part of our practice, and it's healthy. And if we don't do it, we're going to be like bumps on a log sitting here, not doing anything. So what do they mean, when they say be in the present moment? Actually, what it means is, don't get lost in our fantasies about the past, going over and over and over things, and did I say this right, and what do people think about me, and maybe I blew it, and I'm guilty because I messed up the whole past events. So don't get lost in that kind of thinking of the past, and don't get lost in thinking of the future with all of our daydreams. Okay, I'm going to go here and do this and make money doing that and get famous doing this and, make a name for myself and have all this pleasure and go to Hawaii and, go on a cruise after they debug the cruise ships from COVID. I'm going to do all this stuff. So when they talk about don't be in the past and the future, it's in terms of allowing our mind of attachment and regret, going past, future, future. I should have in the past, I should in the future, and just wasting our time like that. Okay, so we have to be kind of clear about that. Otherwise, we think it means don't think about past and future lives. And if we don't think about those, we're going to be in trouble because we're not going to know the causes to create, to have happiness, and the causes that we need to abandon from the past and not create again in the future. Okay, so that's, the meaning here. Yeah, so I may have told you before how I've heard some Buddhists describe the story of the guy who was walking near the cliff, and he slipped and fell off, and on his way down, he grabbed onto a branch. Okay, and he's hanging there, looking down, and holding onto that branch, and a mouse is eating at the branch, going to cut it away, and that's going to be the end of him. And he sees a strawberry, and he says, "Oh, a strawberry." So some people take that as, well, you're going to die anyway. The strawberry gives you pleasure. Be in the present moment. Don't let your mind dread your death. Don't think about your life. Be in the present moment and enjoy that strawberry. My teachers teach that same story and say the strawberry represents worldly objects of attachment. So don't pay any attention to the strawberry. The branch is about to break, so prepare your mind, to die peacefully and for the next life. That's how they interpret the story. So I find it quite interesting that different Buddhist groups interpret that story totally differently. I don't know what the source of the enjoy the strawberry interpretation is. It would be interesting to find out where that came from. Yeah. Okay, so here, what he's saying is, future rebirths stretch out ahead much farther than this one life. So don't think of just this one life, because this life, like that, yeah. And, I don't know, when any of you were little, if you looked at old family pictures, was there a funny kind of sense in your mind looking at your parents' and grandparents' pictures when they were young? And like, oh my God, my mom and dad used to look like that. They don't look like that now. What happened? What happened? And grandma and grandpa that you remember, and there's the pictures, but they aren't alive now. What happened? And being a child and not having a lot of context, just knowing that things arise, people arise and they die, and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. I remember when I was little, because I'm 3 years older than my brother, when I was little, like crying because I thought I was going to die 3 years sooner than him because I was 3 years older. Yeah. And, and then fear that your parents are going to die and you're going to be separated from them. And how death brings up so much fear in people who don't really have a spiritual practice. So by thinking of the continuity of mind, then we don't have that same kind of fear of death because we're not afraid of the mind or the I going completely out of existence. Yeah. On the other hand, then you have to think of what's going to happen to the mind and what's going to happen to the I in the future lives. And then we have to look at how we live this life. And are we abandoning negativity? Are we creating virtue? Yeah. And so here, when he's saying, don't get lost in this life and the pleasures of this life, it's because it's so easy to get lost in that. And then we don't abandon the causes for a bad rebirth. We don't create the causes for a good rebirth. Then when death comes, we're shocked, we're surprised. We don't even bother to think of refuge in the three jewels. And that's if we get lost in just thinking about the happiness of this life. Okay, so that's the warning here. And I think when we heed that warning and keep the memory of death in our minds, it actually helps our mind be a lot calmer in this life. Yeah, because when we look at the things that our mind gets upset about, so many of them are really small, ridiculous things. And even if they're things that we consider big, important things, in the scope of the entire infinite universe, these things are not big and important. Okay? And so, in that way, when we can regard things like that, then there's a certain kind of acceptance that comes. Yes, we still work to improve ourselves and to contribute to the well-being of others and to help society in general improve. We still do that, but we don't do it with the same mental attitude, the same mood, the same flavor as we do if we think of only this life. Yeah, can you see that in your mind? Yeah, when we think of only this life, it's like, look what's happening. This is so terrible. This is awful. Yeah, Chicken Little, and the sky is going to fall, and this and that, and the other thing's going to happen. And we got to do everything and stop it because, he's getting out of control and he's ruining the country and ruining the world. And and we have that kind of idea. When we have that kind of thing in our mind, we don't always make wise decisions. We don't bother to communicate well with people because we're so panicked and we're so terrified, and because we think we have to fix everything immediately. And the big mistake is we think everything can be fixed immediately. Yeah, whether it's a personal thing or a societal thing, we think it should be and can be fixed immediately. Yeah. So I was, and that gets us in this panic state. If we think long term, okay, and this life is a playing field for creating virtuous karma, which helps beings now, but also helps us get closer to awakening, where we can really be of much greater benefit to others. Yeah. Then we'll do virtuous actions. We can still do the same activist activities and things, or social involvement things to improve society. But we do it with a much calmer mind, a mind that has much more space in it, because we aren't all panicked, and because we have an awareness that this is samsara and not everything is going to get fixed. And even the things that will get fixed, it's not going to happen boom. It takes time. Yeah. And time is something, we see what needs to change and we want it to happen now. So I was thinking about, the demonstrations in Portland and now Seattle and many other places around the country against the feds in the city. And people are, wanting societal change. And, Black Lives Matter, reform policing, more equity in society. And so I was thinking it would be a really interesting thing for the mayors and governors and all to invite some of the heads of the groups who are doing the protesting to come into their offices and actively engage in forming policy and getting the policy passed. In other words, not, first you gotta, the people empowered don't always want to talk to the protesters. But even if you talk to them, you can hear them and then you just think, this is impossible, we can't do it. And then the protesters still don't feel heard. They don't feel understood. But invite them into the office and teach them how government works. Teach them how you write up a policy proposal and have them include their ideas in that policy proposal. teach them how to get things passed in the state assembly, and have them actually engage in that process of advocating for their policies with the state senators, so that the people who are protesting get an idea of what the process is, that you can't just, as a mayor or a governor or president, say, okay, from now on we're doing this, because society is constructed where people have to talk to each other, and there's groups, and you have to have people come together and agree to things. One person, I mean, as a protester, you want, the president or the governor or the mayor to say, okay, from now on, this is happening. Well, that's what a dictator does. So you're wanting a dictator who has the policies that you like. Let's have a dictator with compassion. But the thing is, in a democracy, we don't have a dictator. And so things take more time, because we all got to talk about them. And we got to get everybody on board, or at least the majority on board. And we have to hear people's ifs, ands, and buts. And that takes time. Yeah. So if we have an idea of, well, there's future lives and so on, then, some people may say, well, then we got to make the change immediately right now. But no, if you bring the protesters into the process, and everybody's aware, this takes time. So let's make our contribution, and as much as we can, set it up so that people who come after us can continue with what we're doing and have an easier time at it. Yeah. So I think this is what, John Lewis very much did. Yeah. And he never expected equality to come about in his life, but he worked for it earnestly, and he set it up, to inspire the next generation and invite the next generation to come in and carry on from where he left off. And so I think that's a very wise way to do it, where you're thinking about the present, but you're also including the future. Yeah. Yes.
Another thing that these dialogues can do between community activists and local government is to identify what are steps that can be taken now, so that those people who are protesting can see that there's a good faith effort to move forward. And then once you identify what can be done now, then you can also identify, okay, what are some midterm and then long-term solutions and policies that we want to establish.
Yeah.
And now you're forging a course that is sort of bringing everyone together with the same goal.
Yeah.
But in the absence of that, then it's very hard to get any progress.
Yeah, thank you. You said what I was trying to say very succinctly. Thank you. That's exactly the point. Yeah.